Yeah.
3 straight college football playoff appearances and 3 straight college football playoff losses. Oklahoma is getting the job done in the regular season, but are failing to do so in the postseason, as that national title berth continues to elude them. Can they get there in 2020? Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, the best kept secret in all of college football. Today, bringing you our Oklahoma Sooners college football predictions. As always, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And also make sure to check out everything down in the description below, where you can visit our new website, thegridironexpert.com, and also check out our social media pages over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So Lincoln Riley is entering his 4th year as the head coach in Norman, and he is 36-6 over these past 3 seasons. It's an unbelievable record for a relatively brand new and very young head coach. The Sooners went 12-2 last year, once again making the college football playoff, but once again falling in the college football playoff, this time at the hands of LSU. So Sooner fans and Sooner faithful, you shouldn't be too upset about that. While you were annihilated by the Tigers, so was everybody else over the course of LSU's national championship winning season. It's kind of been a funny story note here. Under Lincoln Riley, the Sooners have always lost one regular season game and then lost in the college football playoff. They've never been able to break through to the national championship game. And I can't help but wonder if this year, once again, will not be the year where they can do that. We'll take a look at their offense here, guys. The Sooners return 8 starters on that side of the ball, but for the first time under Lincoln Riley, the Sooners will not have a veteran quarterback under center. A couple of years ago, it was Baker Mayfield. Then it was Kyler Murray. Last year, it was Jalen Hurts. This year, they're dealing with a brand new quarterback, and it's more than likely going to be Spencer Rattler, who has played sparingly for Oklahoma last year, but was highly touted coming out of high school, one of the best passers in the country. The rest of their offense, it's a little bit shaky. You know, Spencer Rattler, very young QB, should hopefully live up to the hype, but he doesn't have much helping him out on the run game outside of Kennedy Brooks, who rushed for over 1,000 yards last year, but they do lose their other star running back in Trey Sermon off to Ohio State. The wide receiver position is going to be the biggest key for Oklahoma, an offense that averaged over 42 points per game and over 500 yards per game last year. They lose CeeDee Lamb, arguably one of the best wide receivers in the country in 2019, and they have been dealt with tons of injuries this season. They're going to have to rely heavily on Charleston Rambo, who had over 700 yards last year, and potentially the UCLA transfer in Theo Howard, if in fact he is healthy. He tore his Achilles earlier in 2020, back in the end of January, early February. If he is not fully healthy to go, Rambo's going to be really the only big receiver that Rattler has to go to, and that's going to really benefit the opposing Big 12 defenses. When you look at Oklahoma's defense, they return 9 starters. Alex Grinch did a fantastic job last year as defensive coordinator. Sooners only allowed a little over 27 points per game. They were 38th in the country in total defense. But the biggest thing that Oklahoma struggled with last year was takeaways. They were 121st in the country when it came to creating turnovers. You've got to be able to win in the turnover margin, guys, to get to a national championship. Oklahoma did fine last year, but as we've said, they've struggled so many years in the playoff. They've got to be able to create some turnovers, which will allow that offense to make you pay for it. And as we all know, they do just that. They lose their leading tackler in Kenneth Murray, but Ronnie Perkins is back up front, assuming that he, of course, is not suspended. Even if he is, he will be back about midway through the season. And then you have Trey Brown and Pat Fields leading arguably the strength for Oklahoma's defense in the secondary. So this Sooners team, guys, they've won 5 straight Big 12 titles. They're looking to make it 6 straight Big 12 titles and a 4th straight appearance in the college football playoff. Can a young QB and experienced defense get them there? We have them opening up the season against Missouri State and, of course, winning that game. Automatic W there. It's going to be a bloodbath, although An interesting side note, Bobby Petrino, former Arkansas, the former Louisville head coach, now coaching Missouri State, the Bears of Missouri State. So that'll be kind of fun. Two great offensive minds here, but regardless, Oklahoma will in fact win this game. And we're going to have them taking down Tennessee as well. And keep in mind, guys, this video, at the time of this filming, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 are the only teams that have canceled non-conference games. And Oklahoma does not have any team from the Big Ten or Pac-12 on their schedule. So we're banking on Oklahoma, as of now, playing an entire 12-game season in 2020. We've got them taking down the Volunteers out of the SEC. A trendy upset pick for many. A trendy upset pick for many, thinking that maybe Spencer Rattler could struggle. Tennessee seemed to kind of turn a corner last year under Jeremy Pruitt, winning their final 6 games. I'm just not seeing it. I'm just not seeing it. I know Tennessee's got a great offensive line, and their offensive line will play even better if Ronnie Perkins doesn't even play in this game. I know they've got some great running backs. I know their defense was a top 25 unit last year. But the thing that continues to stick out to me is you've got to have a quarterback. To win in the SEC, you need to have a quarterback. To win on the road, you need to have a quarterback. And Tennessee doesn't have that. Garantano's all right, but he's been up and down. And I think this is going to be one of his down games against a strong Oklahoma secondary on the road with fans in the stands or not. I do not care. Oklahoma snags a win over Tennessee. You can forget all that trendy upset nonsense. They get their bye week going into a very intriguing game on the road at Army. Back in 2018, Oklahoma survived Army in Norman, 28-21 in overtime. The Black Knights took Kyler Murray and the Sooners to overtime that season. And this is another game where once again, Army could give Oklahoma a very, very strong fight. The Sooners are visiting Army for the first time since 1946. So we hope that fans can be in the stands for this. We hope that this game is not canceled. An Army team that, as we all know, runs the option. They're going to try to pound it on the ground. They're not a very pass-heavy team. And I think this really does test Oklahoma's 32nd ranked run defense from last year. I really think that this game is close, going deep into the third quarter. But in the end, I think Oklahoma's offense pulls away in the fourth. I think it's Army's defense that slips up just a little bit down the stretch. And Oklahoma does go on the road, especially off a week of rest, and defeats the Black Knights of Army. Keep in mind, they too are coming off a bye week. But I like Lincoln Riley and the Sooners to get the job done in a very far-away road game, very intriguing road game, one that Black Knights faithful and players will be hyped for, but once again will fall just short, just like they have against their big opponents over the past few seasons. So the Sooners are 3-0. We're going into the entirety of Big 12 Conference play. We open up against Baylor. Whew, Baylor, man. A series last year where Oklahoma should have lost both games to the Bears. Baylor blew a 28-3 lead in Waco in the regular season. Oklahoma ended up winning that game 34-31. And then the Big 12 championship game with a college football playoff spot on the line for both teams. Baylor lost 30-23 in overtime. Oklahoma very well could have lost and should have lost both of those meetings. And who knows what would have happened after that? Who knows what could have happened if Baylor had won both of those or just one of those? But regardless, Oklahoma did get the job done, and now Baylor is kind of in a bit of a rebuild themselves. Not fully. They're not going to fully collapse and go 1-11 like they did a few years ago. But Dave Aranda steps in as the new head coach down in Waco, and he had a lot of people to replace defensively. And that's key, guys, because we know the Big 12 is not known for defense. We know the Big 12 is known for their offense. But if you can just have a little bit of a defense, you can be in for a very special season. Baylor only returns 2 starters on the defensive side of the ball. Charlie Brewer and the offense, a veteran QB, solid running back, solid wide receivers. They keep this game close for a half. But in the end, it's the defensive breakdowns for Baylor, kind of like the Army game, that end up being costly for the Bears. And it's Oklahoma that pulls away with the win at home. 4-0. Texas in Dallas. Hopefully this game will also be played at the old Cotton Bowl. The Red River Shootout. The Red River Showdown between the Sooners and the Longhorns. Oklahoma lost to Texas 2 years ago, but bounced back and beat Texas 34-27 last year. A game that, kind of like Baylor, Oklahoma could have lost, maybe should have lost, if Texas had been, one, able to take advantage of the Oklahoma turnovers and the mistakes, And also, had Texas been able to tackle? Texas's fundamentals in that game last year were absolutely abysmal, guys, and Oklahoma did escape with a 7-point victory. This is a huge year for Tom Herman. Huge year for Tom Herman and the Longhorns. Veteran QB in Sam Ehlinger, solid running back in Keontae Ingram. Chris Ash, the former Rutgers head coach, is now in as your defensive coordinator, and you return 9 on that side of the ball. This game is going to be very, very, very close down in Dallas. This is a huge game for both. Could be a Big 12 title rematch, Big 12 title matchup later on in the season. But I'm giving the edge yet again to Oklahoma. I do believe the Sooners take care of business in Dallas. I think that while Texas is experienced defensively, they are still dealing with a brand new scheme. They're dealing with a brand new coordinator. They weren't all that great last year. And if Oklahoma's offense lives up to the hype, if Spencer Rattler lives up to the hype, and I think we will, we have never been disappointed from a Lincoln Riley-led quarterback and a Lincoln Riley offense. I think Oklahoma has just enough to win a very close game in this heated rivalry. So they're undefeated here, guys. They're 5-0 going into a road game at Iowa State. And when you look at Oklahoma's schedule, this is a key stretch for them. Pretty much from Baylor to TCU is the biggest stretch for Oklahoma. You got road game at Iowa State. Oklahoma State's extremely dangerous. Texas is dangerous. TCU almost came into Norman and won last year. So that's the key stretch for the Sooners in determining, can they win a 6th straight Big 12 title? Can they get back to the playoff? Or are they going to take a step back with some key pieces that they have to replace? We think they take their first loss of the season, guys, at Iowa State. Boom. Cyclones pull off the upset in Ames. That's a big L if we can get it to pop a little bit better here. That's a big L for Oklahoma here. The last 4 games between Oklahoma and Iowa State have been decided by 10 points or less. And that includes last year's matchup when Oklahoma only won 42-41 when Iowa State's 2-point conversion was picked off late in the 4th quarter. That game was in Norman. That game was a home game for Oklahoma. Iowa State is back with arguably the best quarterback in the Big 12, at least one of them, in Brock Purdy. He's got a very talented offense. He's got a very talented tight end in Charlie Kohler. And the defense returns 9 with a very, very strong secondary. I think Spencer Rattler, on the road, struggles in this game. I think he struggles in this game, and Oklahoma's going to have to try to figure out to win on the ground. And Oklahoma cannot win a game solely on the ground. They have to rely on their passing game. Iowa State takes that away. And in Ames, Matt Campbell and his Cyclones get a huge, huge win. They beat Oklahoma a few years ago in Norman. They now get another win over them on their home turf. They take their first loss of the season, but we think Oklahoma bounces back with a win over Oklahoma State. Bedlam. They defeated the Cowboys 34-16 last year in Stillwater, and while we know that Oklahoma State returns so much talent, Spencer Sanders, Chuba Hubbard, Tyler Wallace, everybody on defense, Lincoln Riley and his squad once again know that if we want to keep our playoff hopes alive, if we want to keep our title hopes alive, we've got to win, because now they've got a loss to their name within the conference. We saw what happened last year. They lost to Kansas State on the road, and they won out until the playoff. They beat Oklahoma State in a very close game, a team led by Mike Gundy that is a Big 12 title contender and college football playoff dark horse in 2020. They beat Oklahoma State, and we're going to give them a rattle-off of 3 straight wins here against TCU, West Virginia, and Kansas State. And the quick breakdowns on this are for TCU, even though TCU almost came into Norman and stole the win, only losing to Oklahoma 28-24 in 2019, the Horned Frogs only returned 7 starters. And while I do know they landed the 5-star running back in Zach Evans, and while I do know that they landed Marcel Brooks, the transfer linebacker from LSU, this is a TCU team that doesn't have a whole lot of depth. And if they are worn out, hurt, tired, coming into this Oklahoma game on October 31st, even though the game is at TCU, I just don't see this defense for the Horned Frogs having enough to shut down the Sooners. I think Oklahoma goes on the road and gets a win. Same for West Virginia, a team they defeated 52-14 last year, a team under Neil Brown that's going to flirt with bowl eligibility this year if they get consistent quarterback play out of Jarrett Doege and not Austin Kendall. But the game in Morgantown, Oklahoma will get the win. And then they get a huge revenge game over Kansas State. Remember, Kansas State handed Oklahoma their only regular season loss of 2019. The Sooners fell 48-41 to the Wildcats last year, but Kansas State only returns 2 starters offensively, Skylar Thompson and one other. Great you've got a veteran QB in Skylar Thompson, a dual-threat quarterback at that. But the game is at home. It is a revenge game, and I just don't see Lincoln Riley allowing this game to slip away from Oklahoma. It's not very often that they lose at home, and Kansas State's not going to be the team to do it. And then we're going to, of course, give them a win over Kansas in Les Miles. The Kansas team that people were kind of high on this year, and I would be if they had kept Carter Stanley. If Carter Stanley was around for one more season, I'd say watch out. Kansas could flirt with bowl eligibility. But I think Les Miles is still in the middle of one of the biggest rebuilding projects in all of college football. And he's not going to be able to come on the road and snag a win over Oklahoma. The Sooners should cruise easily here on senior night against the Jayhawks, setting up a season finale at Texas Tech, a team they defeated 55-16 in 2019. The key for Texas Tech, like many teams, like every team really, is to stay healthy. But it's really true for Texas Tech because they've got one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12 too, in Alan Bowman. And when he is healthy, Texas Tech has one of the best offenses in the country. When he is not, they struggle because they no longer have Jet Duffy, who decided to transfer away from the Red Raiders program. So you look at this game here, if Alan Bowman is healthy, with the game being in Lubbock, you could see the Red Raiders pull off an upset here, especially with Oklahoma still fighting for that Big 12 title berth potentially, but specifically the college football playoff berth. But I still don't think that the Red Raiders' defense is up to par. The offense, fantastic. The defense still has a long way to go. And a game that's closer than many will expect, Oklahoma does go on the road and snag a win. They defeat the Red Raiders to finish 11-1, guys. And of course, again, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 are the only conferences as of this filming that have canceled non-conference games. So we have Oklahoma playing all 12. And of course, the one loss does not come in the non-conference to the Sooners. It comes in conference play to the Iowa State Cyclones. Oklahoma has lost a regular season game every single year under Lincoln Riley. I do not expect it to be any different in year 4. But the Sooners, yet again, are still going to more than likely make the Big 12 championship game. And if they win that, will more than likely slip back into the college football playoff for the 4th year in a row. The major question is, can they finally win in the playoff and get to the national championship? So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And also make sure to check out everything down in the description below, where you can follow us on all of our social media pages over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And also check out our brand new website, thegridironexpert.com, for exclusive content offers that I can promise you do not want to miss. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.